Hey everyone! Back at it again with a microphone on this time.
Is that mine?
Yes, that's
Sorry.
yours. This is Back the Team. Coming to you live from spring break, because we do school during spring break because we're a bunch of nerds. And today we're going over a panel we did at Emerald City Comic-Con called Milktoast Rebels. And it was super fun at Comic-Con, so we thought we'd bring it to everyone here, all two of you who are watching in the middle of spring break.
And then more from YouTube later.
Yes! All of these go to YouTube, so that's good. But to start it off, we can introduce our whole team. We'll start over there.
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Miriam. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the marketing lead for the Digital Future Lab.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm Randy Brown. I'm this fine lady's cousin, and
Our guest for the day.
Very special.
She's like, that's good. That's good enough.
That's solid. With this half the table, we're gonna take it away.
We
got
can
this
handle
whole
it
thing.
on our own.
Okay. My name is Ina. I'm the assistant director, lead producer of the studio and resident clown for the evening. Or not evening, sorry.
Resident clown, always.
Resident clown.
Yeah.
Then who are you?
I'm the adult here, apparently. I'm kidding.
She's got the glasses.
I have the glasses on.
She's got the glasses, so she's
That's
in
what makes an
charge.
adult.
Look,
Yeah.
Yes, glasses. So
You're in
step
charge.
it up. I'm kidding. My name is Morgan. I'm one of the artists here during spring break. And I use she, her, they, them pronouns. Okay, to start the party off, do any of y'all want to talk about what a milquetoast is? Like, what is a milquetoast?
We can start with the original definition of milquetoast.
Which I just learned.
It's tasty, right? It's tasty.
A little bit bland. It's a little bit
So
bland.
there are two definitions of milquetoast. The term that's closer to what we're talking about today is not the original, but derived from the original. It is a timid, meek, or unassertive person. This was from a cartoon about a character who was milquetoast and was very unassertive, timid, and very white.
So what is the original definition of milquetoast?
The original definition of milquetoast is tasty. It
We have very different definitions of tasty.
But go ahead.
No, I've never had it. It's actually a dish of toast or bread that is soaked in milk.
Wow.
And the reason that it's used in the timid, meek, or unassertive bit is because milquetoast was generally a dish that people had when their stomach wasn't feeling well and they weren't quite feeling 100, and so they just decided to, disgrace the rest of us with milquetoast.
But what we're talking about today is the trend of Milktoast Rebels per se, which is this new rising trend that we're seeing kind of in the entertainment industry to create narratives around leaders of rebellion that are a little milquetoast.
And you can have many, but making them all the same is a little bit troublesome.
Yeah.
But I think the question for today is based on when we are examining these things, like through the lenses of intersectional feminism.
And all the waves of feminism. Right?
Is it milquetoast or is it not?
Is
Is it mimic?
milquetoast?
Is
Or
it meek?
French
Is it
toast?
timid? Is it,
And then also a little bit of, does it, even if it's not completely that, what aspects are there that sort of harken back to that or might still be problematic even in something that is inching its way toward being more intersectional?
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Today on why we should cast all of our leads as brown.
Yeah.
Listen, it would solve so many problems. But anyways, we had a whole slew of media we were going to go over today. We had The Hunger Games, Rogue One, I think Divergent was another. Hunger Games.
Well, let's wait.
We'll get around.
Let's pause.
Yes.
Let's pause.
This
Let's
is
go
why we're
through
doing
them.
sections, because we are just going to go ham on these.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's start.
So where do we want to start? Do we want to start just going straight down the list?
No, let's go aliens.
Aliens. Okay.
All right.
And what do we think?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start with Alien.
I
So,
did not watch Alien because it's
exploding.
scary.
You didn't watch it.
No, it's
So,
scary.
That's
Okay.
okay. That's okay.
I watched it. You watched it.
I've watched the first 4 movies in the
Okay.
series, in the
And
franchise.
Randy?
I think I've seen them all.
Yeah, me too.
I think I've
Yeah.
seen them.
Me too.
Including the new...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, and I've seen Alien versus Predator.
Oh, awesome.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can make
Both
the
of
predator
those.
noise.
Yes,
That's the only
yes.
connection I have to this series.
What?
I can make the predator noise, and that's the only connection I have to this series.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Oh, I thought you were going to do it. I was totally waiting.
So when we look at the Alien franchise, and I want to look franchise for a second.
Right.
What do we think? Milk toast, not French toast, somewhere in
I love that
between.
sketching of them.
And where do we feel like this is kind of like hearkening what wave of feminism?
So one of the interesting things about the Alien franchise is it spanned decades.
Yeah.
Did.
And so as such, it started, I want to say 80s, around 80s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's come all the way through today with the newer films. And so as such, it spanned a couple of waves of feminism. Because we had around the 80s, second wave feminism was ending, going into third wave. And then, which something we haven't talked about really is fourth wave feminism, which is like this emerging platform.
Yeah.
Don't know that it ties directly to that franchise yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting to look into the franchise through multiple lenses because it has spanned over such a long time.
So where do you think it falls?
From my perspective,
Yeah.
it is somewhere between second and third.
Okay.
And why?
Because second wave feminism was very much about women joining the workforce, exactly, getting more legal rights and that sort of deal. And third wave feminism, which it started to bleed over into, is more of what we've grown up with in these past couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's more towards talking about harassment and assaults and those sorts of issues. And I think we see both of those in the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get like more specific in terms of what type of women were getting these rights and these pushes for? Because it definitely was not women of color.
Well, yeah.
Like it was like secondary, kind of like it's not a race thing, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
but
see that a lot with these space movies a lot. A lot of the characters tend to not be people of color.
it's the ensemble cast that we kind of
Yeah.
lose when the spaceship explodes.
So
Yes.
when we did this at Comic-Con, we went a little bit more into depth about this, but for context, second wave feminism in particular was based in a large part off the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And a lot of people who were working on the civil rights movement had that sort of intersection and were also working on the feminist movement. And a lot of the people who were doing that, their histories and their stories were sort of condensed or just forgotten willingly. And that kind of translated over to the media of the time where in a lot of these movies and a lot of these shows, you wouldn't see that all the stories translated. It was a very like upper class
Pick and
cis
choose.
white woman type deal.
Wasp content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? The Lizzie Bennett
Yeah,
series?
I think what's interesting though is Sigourney Weaver in this movie, like as a young girl and me seeing her, I felt like she was a fucking badass. Can I say that?
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yes,
It's
go ahead.
Spring
Go
Break.
ahead.
Break.
Spring break, all roads off.
And who and how she evolved through the narrative, I actually like found amazing, and I totally related to her, and kind of totally related to just her fucking badass self, you know,
Yeah.
her muscles.
Yeah.
And I
She
know
was
there's,
cut.
there's lots of like, yeah. And there's lots of points about her that happen in the narrative that are very interesting, the way in which her gender is really used. Which we kind of were talking about becoming the chalice. Which we see in
No,
in
it's
a
not Sigourney
similar.
Weaver.
Oh
They
no,
do that- they
no,
do that
they
now, too.
They chalice her
right,
too.
you told
They
me.
chalice her
I
too.
talked about this. Yeah, it was.
It's in,
They're so good.
Yeah,
it's
they have
Terminator. They do
full-
it in Terminator, but they
have
do it in
full
Alien
movies
too.
where she's birthed the new alien species,
Yeah.
Well,
and and trust her and
In
no
the
one
fourth
else.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah, so they did do it in both. I didn't notice it, but they.
Well,
It's there.
It is
right?
there.
In the
Yeah.
third,
It's apparently always there.
Yeah.
context for those of you who might not know. In the third movie, she becomes sort of. What would be the correct term?
She's
it's
the
not
surrogate mother for
Yeah.
the
kind of
alien.
basically.
Yeah.
It's so
it starts
weird.
growing inside of her. She has an alien inside of her, and
She's been cloned to
that's the
carry
fourth
it.
one. That's the fourth
Oh,
one.
okay,
I'm
okay,
getting
okay.
there.
Okay.
We're,
Okay.
It's a whole arc.
Okay.
So she finds out in the third one that it's inside of her. That
Yeah.
information gets transferred to the company, which wants to keep the alien safe at all costs.
Yes, that's
so that they
right.
can use it as basically a bioweapon.
Like Paul
Yeah.
Reiser or somebody. I
Exactly.
remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what happens is
Yeah.
she's like, this thing's growing inside of me. I want to die so
Yeah.
that they can't get a hold of it.
Yeah.
Which leads to a whole other situation about people of color sacrificing themselves to save the main character because
Yeah.
that happens in the third movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not even there yet. So she ends up dying and
Yeah.
her body's like exploded in like molten metal that's then freezed and like or frozen and exploded. In the fourth movie, they've taken her DNA without her will, of course, because
Yeah.
she wanted to die.
Yeah.
And they cloned her
Yeah.
8 times
Yeah.
to try to recreate the alien growing inside of her. And so there's this whole scene where she finds all these previous iterations of herself.
Oh, it's so disturbing.
You showed me this. It
It's
was
so
gross.
disturbing. It's
Pictures are
so
disturbing.
disturbing.
But it's this whole idea of
Yeah.
they're using her for
Yeah.
her body
Yep.
and the
chalice. It's just another way to be the
chalice
chalice.
thing.
It's another way to like, fridge her agency into just like
no
you're a
bodily
womb.
autonomy.
You're a
like
womb. That's all.
like bodily autonomy
Yeah.
is such a big concept throughout the series.
Yeah.
And that was something that was like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Something you were talking about earlier is her being such a strong and cool character. The other side of that is the aspects that are problematic. You then have to pull out of the fiction a little bit and say, who was she created by and why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when sometimes.
And when.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about...
Military-industrial complex.
Do you want to talk...
I mean, you said she's cloned up
No.
in a laboratory for
Yeah.
basically a weapon.
Do you wanna
know,
talk-
that's what it sounded like.
It's terrible.
Do you want to talk about what we had talked to our executive director,
yeah.
Jason, about the last scene in the first movie, about her running in her skivvies?
In her panties.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, and I know, he made her vulnerable. And that's a big critique in that moment, right? And that actually kind of comes up in Alien in multiple different ways. There's all this imagery where the female form is like being kind of like made vulnerable. And there's a lot of violence happening too.
And over sexualization and harassment.
Yes, multiple scenes of that. But in the same sense, as far as like, was it cool to see in the movie? Yeah.
Listen.
Hollywood's just obsessed with
Impractical.
getting people naked.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
They
But
just-
if I had
Yes.
a chance to look as good as Sigourney Weaver,
Mhm.
maybe just run around like skivvies. Like, why not?
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to do it. Like, it sucks.
She had a flat ass.
Listen.
That's not her fault. That's not her
Oh,
fault.
man.
That's not her fault.
It's gonna
Let's
drag
not
you with
body
it.
But
shame
then
her.
I'm not body shaming. I'm not body shaming.
She was in great shape, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, she
She
didn't
made a
have...
flat ass look good.
Yeah, she didn't have like a...
Sigourney,
She
love you.
did.
You know, she
I'm
didn't
not
have a
gonna lie.
stellar keister, but her like she was really fit, and
Yes.
that was back when my mom was still doing like aerobics instruction,
Yes.
and I remember her talking about people with Metro Arm and
Yeah.
how it would jiggle back and forth when they would hold the things, and she liked like the Sigourney Weaver image
yes.
was like
Oh, I call
something
those
she really
grandma
liked.
wings, like bingo
Yeah.
wings.
Yeah.
I love
Because
them.
she was working for
that's just
Boyne,
what
and she
arms
was like
mean.
the only woman there. And
Yeah.
she was like, "I don't want to look soft and timid and all this other stuff. It's not really not
I want
the-
some Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Before Michelle
Yeah,
Obama
before
arms
that.
existed.
Before
Yeah.
that, just
Yeah.
on just basic health and upkeep, just
Yeah.
I want to be strong.
There's something about what you just said that it's kind of nitpicking, but the only woman there.
She was, yeah.
for most of this series. She is the only woman. There's an instance where she gets essentially a surrogate daughter.
Yeah.
And who, spoiler alert, ends up dying
Yeah.
later in the series.
Yeah.
But to that point, almost every other woman in the series at some point dies.
Yeah.
Almost every single person of color dies.
Yeah.
And so it's really about her narrative until you get to the fourth movie, and then you get Winona Ryder, who's an android who makes it to the very end.
What's the origin one? I'm trying to remember. Did you see that one?
Prometheus. I have not
yeah.
seen
I love Prometheus.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm trying to pull it up in my memory bank right now, and I'm having a hard time because I'm also thinking about Alien versus Predator, where you have a black female character actually be the protagonist. And I saw that one in the theaters. I can't remember who actually starred in that movie, but it was so. It was.
I haven't seen that one.
Take me along.
No.
Yo, this is what we have Wi-Fi for.
Oh man, what is her name? She's really pretty.
But that's interesting because that does add more to the franchise.
I feel
Oh,
like
it did. It did. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know how well the movie did as far as like box office results.
I mean,
know.
Idris Elba is in there. That's all that matters to me.
In Prometheus.
Yes, Prometheus.
Prometheus. But look up
Alien
oh
versus
my
Predator.
God.
Who are these two with their names just are not loading?
Alien versus Predator.
No. I'm looking for
okay.
Alien versus Predator, not
Back.
Prometheus.
Okay.
Yeah.
The star of that. But I feel like whenever they give somebody a movie like that, they always go out of their way to make sure that they don't give you any more movies like that.
Yes.
Oh yes,
She's
Sanaa
so
Lathan.
cute.
Yes,
Sanaa
Sanaa
Lathan.
Lathan. Yeah.
Sanaa Lathan.
That's what I said. I was like, she's really pretty.
She's
I
so
couldn't
pretty.
remember her name.
She is. Yeah.
But think about it. Once she comes out with that, they won't pretty much let her star in any more movies.
Yeah.
You know, it took a long time for the girl from Precious to get in any more movies. Like as soon as you get it like that, they kind of X you out. They did the same thing to Whoopi Goldberg. It's just very common. They don't want you to rise too high.
It's true.
And so once you get to that certain plateau, they kind of just shut you down as far as jobs that you can get. And it's not fair. It's not right. But I mean, it's kind of what people really need to do. And I know it's been said a million times. We got to stop trying to get these characters to change their movies because they're super bro-y and they're going to continue to be bro-y.
The characters or the studios?
The studios. Okay. And we need to fund our own stuff and cut them out.
Yes.
We need to totally cut them out of the whole situation. Yes. And then the business will be better from the beginning because it'll be built out of a better starting point. You got to start with better people. Absolutely. That's really the issue is these people really aren't that great. They're pretty bad people and their only real motivation is money.
Yes.
Well, if you're going to make art, you need some people that are motivated by the actual art. And if you want to make stuff that people love, you kind of have to love people. You can't be a hater of people and everybody loves you. It really just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So.
To that point, that's one of the big problems we see with like big ticket studios is in order for anything to get greenlit, they have to prove that it's marketable.
Yep.
Right.
Or that there's an audience for it versus, for example, little beauty side of things, like when Rihanna dropped Fenty Beauty, she didn't have to prove there was a market for it. There was a market for it. There was a market for like having that many shades in your lineup. There's you don't have to prove the marketability. Yeah. You just have to prove that you have good content.
Especially when there is already an established market. Like, we know the market's there, they just still actively ignore it. It's like, no, it's not marketable because no one's done it before. I'm like, you think?
Yeah. Like, then be the first to do it. Yeah, exactly. Be the first to do it. You jump ahead. Yeah. First in market rules. Yes. Like, other people are going to follow. And that just brings more people to your market. Mm-hmm. I mean,
but them finally coming out with other shades of makeup was a big deal. Even for people like me, because I started acting when I was a kid, doing commercials and stuff like that. And that was the first problem we had. The first time I ever got a pimple in my life was after them putting this, and the makeup looks bad because it's not meant for you at all. They did no testing, no blending, so it's just
like being 4 shades lighter today.
I mean, that's part of it. But what's even worse is it makes you kind of have like dead looking skin. Yes, because it's not like it wasn't really made for you, so it doesn't like bring any of the goodness out in what you look like. It kind of just covers you up and makes you look
I don't
worse.
know if you guys have read about what they've done with lighting on Issa Rae's show.
Yes.
No,
How
what did they do?
It's lighting and
It's
makeup.
so good.
It's lighting and makeup.
so good.
So using a lot of like highlighter based, like to get
like that glisten on the
glisten.
skin.
Okay.
Right? More
That's
of like
what I'm saying, because you don't want to
a
just
glow.
look
There's
dead.
just a
you know?
glow.
No, and then
I don't even know how else to
bringing
describe
the lights,
it.
bringing the lights in different ways to essentially like make Black people's skin look just radiant.
Yeah.
It's
So
gorgeous.
they actually
Because, I mean,
for
look at the
Issa Rae's
variation
show,
of shades. Like, everybody's
Yeah.
not the same shade. And then the undertones are
Yeah.
also different. So there's, like, a lot of reds
Yes,
and gold and different
but
undertones,
it's different
too.
lighting that they actually had not explored. So
Yeah.
HBO actually did all this like new lighting work to instead of use lighting techniques that light white people's faces, they were using lighting techniques that actually will help light
That's good.
Black
And
people's like
HBO
skin
has
tones.
a pretty decent track record, because if you remember back when they were doing all of the fights and stuff, and they were being very racially biased until Don King. Black people couldn't get the fights booked. No, it's true, and that was our lifetime. That was Mike Tyson time, and that was when they were coming out with the Bigfoot pizza and stuff. It wasn't that long ago. And so during that time, HBO was the one that actually was like, we'll put your fights out, we'll give you the money. And I still remember those days, because he couldn't get the fights. That's why Muhammad Ali had to have the Rumble in the Jungle, and right, he had to go to another country to get his fight done, because they wouldn't let us book any fights. So
just blocking.
Yeah, I mean, people like me have a long memory. When you do stuff like that, we definitely will remember that you don't suck. And,
the bar is like,
right? The bar isn't that high. Just don't be terrible.
They're gonna trip over it.
Let's get
don't
back.
Be terrible.
Okay, let's get back.
Right, that's the bar.
Let's get back to some of this content.
Actually.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about just kind of jump into Hunger Games or Stonewall, either one. Rogue One.
Oh my gosh.
What do we think?
Catfish Everdeen.
Catfish Everdeen.
Okay. Just based on that, we have to go to Hunger Games right now, because they totally did that.
Yeah.
They did that to us.
Yeah.
They did
Catfish.
that.
Oh my god. Sorry, you're right. I get the joke now. But
Okay. Do you want to explain what part of the joke you got for our audience?
Please do.
Because I didn't know about this until earlier today when Anna told me.
Yes.
So, if I recall correctly, in the books, she's supposed to be native.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not explicitly, but heavily
Extremely
coded.
not white.
Heavily coded as native.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of
slipped her in.
Yeah,
but since it wasn't
Swapped her
explicit,
out.
they're like, we can work our way around that.
Yeah, they did that
she's
actually.
got that brown hair of color, so like it
We'll
works.
make it work. They actually did that with Harry Potter with the casting of Hermione.
Right.
So I thought Hermione was mixed. Hermione's narrative with her hair.
You think J.K. Rowling is that?
She that deep? Is she that deep?
I do actually. I do because they explain her skin, and she has brown tawny hair or brown tawny skin and like curly crazy hair. Yeah. I totally thought the whole time I was reading Hermione's relationship with her hair that I was reading my relationship with my hair. Mm-hmm. So I always thought she was mixed. Yeah. And then J.K. did come out later and actually say, yes, that's true.
Okay, but she's been doing that about a lot of things.
Sure. But it's
there might have been one Jewish kid at Hogwarts.
But it's in there. Stop. Oh my god, you're so
She
funny.
said that!
Stop it. Stop it.
Oh my
Stop
god.
it.
Anyway, your point.
My point is it's in the
Not a real
book.
quote.
It's in the book.
It's a real quote?
Yep.
Wow.
I saw someone break down her attitude on that really well, where if people like approach her, it's like, could this have been like a diverse cast?
She's like,
she's
sure.
Like, yeah, I'm like, could Dumbledore have been on roller skates the whole time? And, like,
I do like that she's open to it, but the fact that it wasn't, again, this idea of explicitly stated, like kind of skirting around it, it does allow these like casting agencies to make these decisions.
Yeah, which so on that point, I want to hold the writers accountable, right? And again, you have, the writing of Hermione Granger as ambiguous. You have the writing of Katniss Everdeen as ambiguous by these authors, right? Why didn't you just say it?
Just say that.
Just commit. You know, go brown and go home. You know, or go brown and go, I don't know.
And then to Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I think the problems come, because I think a lot of the artists, they want to leave things kind of open so that whatever the person thinks or feels, it'll kind of fit with that, so that it'll be, you know, it'll be closer to your heart. So I mean, I get that. That's why you hear a lot of songs and they're really vague and like open, you know. Like, so, but I think the problem really comes in like swapping out the characters and stuff. As soon as you bring in these producers, once you bring in the Harvey Weinstein type of characters that are actually like putting these things together, once again, they're actually bad people. And the only thing that I'm just saying,
it's been
this
proven.
is actually a bad person. And at the end of the day, the only thing right for, I mean, I don't know if we can say it.
I just said it.
It's spring break. No rules.
But it's true. I mean, it is true. But the problem is, he's gonna end up paying for your thing to actually get made, which is gonna give him control over the product, and he's gonna go, I want to guarantee that I get a return on my investment. And I don't know how many, you know, there's only 40% of the country, so let's just swap it out, make it a white person. That's, you know, 60%. Just more potential moviegoers and stuff like that. So it's the bad guy always finds a way. There's when you want something, you'll find a way, and when you don't want something, you'll find an excuse. And so they say, hey, you know, it's about the money or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, it's just that's their thing that they want to do. That's what Harvey wanted to do. He wanted to swap you out. From the gate, and then he found the reasoning. Like he came up with the reasoning.
And I don't, you know, and I mean, for me, at the end of the day, that's white supremacist patriarchy. Like that's what it is. And whether Harvey Weinstein wants to admit that he is supporting the narrative of white supremacist patriarchy and misogyny and homophobia, like you are. If you're making those decisions, you are Harvey Weinstein. And if you know, and that's the truth. Whether you're like being, you know, overtly complicit with this, or you're being like, well, I know this will sell more, so I'm just going to do it, right?
But I was saying that's just the excuse that they use just as an example of the excuses. Because as you just saw with Black Panther, they can come out with stuff with people that aren't white, and it will sell. They just tend to only want to come out with like Tyler Perry and like stuff like that, where it's like not really of that same caliber. Like they don't want to make the same caliber movies, and that's why Black Panther was a big deal, because you finally had the comic where you're not a sidekick, and they're gonna spend money on the budget.
And we get more than one.
You know what I mean?
More than one.
Yes.
For real, you're gonna spend money on it? What? All right.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
and
man.
make it look good.
It made a lot of money, which is why they were all happy.
And it makes money. That's what I'm saying. And they know that it'll make money.
So to me, I feel like that shift in narrative, it had been coming in a lot of different ways. People have been putting in so much work. But to me, the pivotal moment that happened recently was in 2016 at the Super Bowl when Beyonce dropped Formation. Okay? This was a moment.
I had a whole weekend of this.
This was a moment. This was a moment. You know it's true. It's gospel, and that's why she's saying it. This was a moment where you had a Black woman collaborating with artists from all different music genres, all different backgrounds, to create this amazing piece of art. Then she takes this amazing badass song, an actual global call to action for not just women, but for like not just Black women, but like all of us women and then all of us people, and performs it at the like altar of white supremacy and patriarchy, which is the Super Bowl. Which is, I mean, let's be real.
Right? We're not going to deny that at all.
No one's questioning it.
It's definitely a very military.
It's the military
industrial complex.
It's like men, it's beer, it's buy pussy, own women, watch Black men like fight and do war games and like
flyovers.
Oh my God. Deal. It's insane.
Yeah,
it is nuts. The pinnacle of the white supremacist patriarchal narrative in the entertainment industry.
And it's buy all of our crap. We have all this stuff to sell you too. And it's all our stuff. It's none of your stuff.
No.
No, it's none of your stuff.
No.
It's our stuff.
So the moment that she did that and then launched her tour, to me, that sparked an interesting moment where even though she got so much flack for like performing there, what did we see right after that? Album sales, everybody was clamoring to get that album.
Yeah.
Everybody was waiting. Everybody got a Tidal subscription just so they could get that album. Ain't nobody using Tidal now. Sorry, B. I love you, B. But ain't nobody using Tidal right now. People got Tidal just so they could get Lemonade. Yeah. And then what does she do? A little bit after that, drops the video and is like, oh yeah, BT dubs, here's a juicy bit of gossip. My husband cheated on me. Then everybody had to see the video, right? And then she says, also world, I'm going on a world tour. Would you guys like to give me more money? Yes, you would, right?
Yeah.
She proved that what? Black woman narrative rebel, like giving a big FU to the patriarchy sells. It sells. People will show up for that. White women will show up for that. Indian women will show up for that. Black men will show up for that. White men will show up for that. Queer people will show up for that.
You know why?
They will buy that.
People want authenticity. They just want the truth. They want real stuff. And they don't want it watered down and changed and altered and all the good parts shaved off to like fit into the little space that you have set up for it. And that's really the problem. That's why the news, people are starting to not watch it. People are cutting the cable cords. Well, that's money too, because let's be real. You guys are charging way too much for cable. But I mean, like, you know, let's just be honest. I'm not. But you know what I mean? Like they're making everything so cookie cutter that it's not real. It's just not real. You know, it's milktoast.
Exactly. You said watered down.
There you go.
So to me, that moment with Lemonade and everything that kind of happened after that signaled to the entertainment industry, right? Because she did it with her own funds, her own production company, right? This black woman.
It showed that she was willing to take a risk.
Well, and what you're saying, what you were saying like earlier, right? Like we need to do it ourselves.
You got to do it yourself.
She did it. What we're seeing is the after effects of that. We're seeing all of this investment and actually promoting like characters of color as being the agencies or the agents of their own story, the protagonists, right? And it's great, and we've gotten to see all this work, you know, coming out. But I really feel like that moment in 2016 was a pivotal moment, signaling to the entertainment industry that like this is worth investment. Like this will sell to not just like 40%. This will sell to like 70%. Right. Yeah. This will sell to 75%. Right.
But before that, we were still seeing like these watered down versions. That were just. It's hard because these are a lot of the ones on this list actually
are great.
Great is a relative term.
I was going to talk. They're from established sort of brands. You got your Hunger Games, which was from a book series. You got Divergent, another book series. You have Rogue One, which backed up of Star Wars. And so these are things that came from sort of established brands that could have taken that chance. Like having established fan base and knowing that it's marketable. Being able to go forward and say, okay, but here's what we're going to give you. We're going to give you that narrative in a way that you weren't expecting. You were expecting cookie cutter. We're going to break that. But they didn't.
But they didn't.
But they didn't. They could have.
They kind of baited us.
Right.
They did bait us.
Just not kind of. Just they did.
They did. And then they switched it.
Yeah, good old bait and switch.
That's how I feel about Rogue One. Because when we saw the other one.
There's like 10.
Other Star Wars. Oh, Lord.
Are you talking episode 7? Or?
Yes.
Sith? No?
The
Force Awakens?
One?
Yes.
Force Awakens.
I'm
that Star Wars nerd. I am that Star Wars nerd.
I've seen them all, but I don't remember the...
No.
I don't remember.
Okay, so here's the interesting point. I love Rogue One. I love that film. And it really, like, moved me for multiple different reasons as far as, like, storyline. And I actually don't mind Jyn that much. However, the setup with The Force Awakens led me to believe that they were going to even go further, that they were actually going to cross with Rogue One and actually have like a brown person be the main protagonist and maybe just not even have a white person.
No white people.
Did it.
That's not realistic.
I mean, you could even have kept all of the white people that you had before, but you should have just let
what's his name? Darth Vader just be black.
Oh,
Don't have him just be the voice and then swap him out.
No.
Like, once again, I have an issue with the swap out. You know what I mean?
out.
You got James Earl Jones doing the voices,
Yeah.
and then because his voice, it's so cool, it's so great. You got him all blacked out, but then when he opens his mask, it's not a black guy anymore.
Yeah.
And that's, once again, that's weird. That's like what Michael Jackson said his biggest fear was when he dies, that they were going to have a white guy play him.
Oh,
And
they
he was-
did.
Oh,
They
boy.
did.
And they did that.
They did.
They swapped him out, and that's like a pretty common thing. They like
Swap.
to do that. Yeah.
So I feel like they bait and switched us on that, because when we saw the setup of Finn and Rey and
They
Poe
even did that with
in
the
that.
other one, The Last Jedi.
Yes, that's what I'm
I
saying.
don't want to talk about The Last Jedi.
But then we didn't see that in Rogue One, and we got Jyn. She's a great actress. There's a lot of reasons why that isn't, like, to me, the milk toasty of all milk toasty.
They had that sort of idea of, well, our ensemble cast is more
Yeah,
diverse.
she
Yes.
was coached by a bunch of brown people to be brighter,
Yes.
which like made her a slightly better character.
Yeah, I was
God,
gonna
at
say,
what
that
cost?
helps. Every little bit helps.
Okay, but
Every little bit helps.
It did help.
Let's just
Also,
keep moving in the right direction.
no, but
Yeah.
also that scene toward the beginning
Yes.
with K2SO and
Yes.
Cassian
Yes.
when they're on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, we got a couple of problems. One, they like did some hardcore coding
Oh.
with the sort of like what they were calling like terrorists on the
Oh.
planet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
Oh,
they
I
did.
only watched. I literally only watched.
Yeah,
the
they
30
did.
months.
You're right. You're right.
And
yeah.
then also they didn't need to kill my boy off.
Saw Gerrera.
Saw Gerrera did not need to be
He
killed
didn't
off.
need to
Pissed.
die.
The
He
only
didn't need to
reason I
die.
saw
He didn't need to
that
die.
movie and
It
was
was
like
weird.
as interested in the film as I was
Yeah.
because Saw Gerrera, his character was
Forrest
so
Whitaker.
fucking
Forrest
compelling.
Whitaker's so
He was doing
Yeah.
the narrative for the whole thing, and the, like the last
Yeah.
shot at the end of the trailer is like, "What will you become?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I would die for you!" Like I will go see this movie, and the
Yeah,
whole
because
time
they
it's
had
like,
built him up. They had built him up in the cartoon one.
he had like 8 whole minutes.
Yeah, no, but in the cartoon,
Oh,
Clone Wars?
yeah,
Clone
Clone
Wars, Saul Gerrera actually has a storyline.
Right. But
anything would have been more interesting.
everything
I would
on that
say.
little planet.
Yes.
Everything on that little planet because they had these sort of like planetary terrorists or whatever they were calling them,
Yeah.
and they were very like
Yeah.
coded to people who in like on Earth would be from the Middle East.
Arab.
Yeah.
Like Arab specifically, and they coded that, and they were like, "Oh, these terrorist people on the planet,"
Racial
and then
profiling, never seen
Yeah.
that one before.
right, and then in the same on the same freaking planet, they kill off Saw Gerrera, they kill off Forrest Whitaker, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
can he catch a break? I swear, Disney's out to get him. They did the same thing in Black
Yeah.
Panther. I swear, they're out to get Forrest
Well.
Whitaker. Disney's out to get Forrest Whitaker. We'll give you a job, but you have to die.
It's always the start point. You're starting with Disney. It's Walt Disney. That dude was an anti-Semitic, like, bad guy. Once again, he was like, he was a Hitler fan. Like, literally. Like, come on, dude. Like, that's...
And that's the name we decided to rep globally.
But I don't want
on,
to. I don't want to tear down Disney because I feel like Disney is actually doing some. I'm just saying that I feel like Disney's
they're
doing
being
some
modern.
interesting thing now.
They're
now,
being forced
now.
to make changes based on what they're seeing from their communities.
There's people working in that company right now that are responsible for the changes that are happening because they're people just like you and I that are going into that company working for them and making decisions to change narratives and to actually make character decisions and influence that and have been for years.
Oh, thank gosh.
Yes. That's what we always have to remember when we think about these entities. Like you have the Harvey Weinsteins, but then you have like the team of animators. Then you have the rigging people. Then you have all the like how many associate producers, how many audio engineers. And you're not talking about
Those
one
people are
set
usually
of
pretty
people.
great. Because I mean,
they're artists.
I work on
Most of
sets
them.
all the time. I was shooting a commercial yesterday.
Yeah.
Downtown Seattle in Occidental Park, and I mean, all the people that you work with, for the most part, on any crew,
Yes.
they're all really nice.
Yes.
They're all pretty open. They're typically not that mixed ethnically, but as far as like being open to people of different genders or sexual orientations, they're totally cool with all that stuff. They don't, it's not a big deal with anybody. But the people that are typically
bankrolling.
the people that are operating the cameras and the booms and all that stuff, the gaff rigs and all those people, they're typically male and they're typically white, right? And then the makeup people, typically female. And then there's sometimes, it'll be like an Asian lady or a black lady. I haven't had any of the makeup people. I've never been a man. As far as directors, I've only had 2 female directors. And I shot, I think, 33 commercials last year. So, I mean, like, I work a lot. I work with a lot of different companies. And a lot of these companies are trying hard, man, to do different things. That's why I'm in their commercials. Like, so I give them credit. But as far as the people that they use behind the camera, it's really, there needs to be more diversity by like a lot. Yeah. It's very non-diverse. Yeah. You'll be lucky if there is a woman, like that's as good as it's going to get, really, seriously. It's that's how it goes, So, I mean, they're typically good people. They're nice people, but it's just not a diverse group.
Yeah. But so on that note, I kind of want to bring up Divergent. Because to me, Shailene Woodley herself is a really interesting example of that. Somebody who isn't, sure, she's a woman, but she's a white woman, and she gets cast as this very, like, girl next door, like, I don't know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Girl,
like,
right?
Just kind of
wave of a thing.
Yes.
Like typecast always.
Yes, right? However, is like this really cool social justice activist who really has like spoken out and done all of this activism work, and not like in a way to draw attention to herself, but actually has put her actual body on the line to draw attention to like water rights issues in North and South Dakota, and like speaking out on that stuff. That's amazing to me. So that's somebody who kind of has taken her own identity and co-opted it to like also subvert the patriarchy and the white supremacist narrative, but however gets cast because of, right?
Yeah, she's like, in terms of her personal ethics, from what I'm reading, is like polar opposite of like Jennifer Lawrence, J-Law.
Oh my god.
The sigh.
The entire group. Everybody did the same thing.
This is something we talked about.
Man.
And oh my gosh, I was at a dinner party the other day and they were like, "Isn't J-Law great?"
Like,
and I was like, if there were other people in this room I could talk to, please. I love my friends, but also sometimes,
they test you.
And but just the way she approaches like her view to feminism versus like Shailene Woodley's view of feminism, that's like her
relationship with, let's just say the difference between her relationship with Native people. You have like basically the whole Native community in Hawaii being like, I don't want you to ever step foot here, J-Law, because you desecrated our ancient like sites and prayer sites. Like you rubbed your ass, talked about rubbing your ass.
Like made a joke about it too.
On like sacred stones in Hawaii. Like really great. Really, you had to do that, even though somebody had told her. Somebody had told her.
They said, like, don't do this.
Don't do this. And then you do it.
Watch me. I'm like, oh, that's.
And then you do it, and then you make a joke about it. Then she made a joke about it.
Like posting pictures or whatever, or something like that.
On a talk show.
That's weak.
And you have so you have J-Law desecrating
like white feminism,
Native Hawaiian sacred sites.
Poster child
and then
for
you
white
have
feminism.
Shailene Woodley going to Standing Rock and getting like arrested and being like speaking out for water rights.
Caring about people.
Using your platform.
It's that like basic human empathy that we kind of like
That's
lose.
where I'm at.
And we lose it, I don't know, like it's...
So props, I want to give a shout out and props to Shailene Woodley.
That's just so weird.
Because it's so easy
she doesn't
it's
care.
really
not
like
to
weird.
be an asshole.
Like I was in Hawaii like a year ago and there's like a big holy site on the top of Mount like Molokai.
Molokai.
And there was a protest when I was there because they were building like telescopes up there. People were
that
mad
was on
about
Mauna
it because
Kea.
it's like a religious site.
Molokai,
but when we're there, everybody who's there is like quiet, like nobody's being loud because you know other people are there for like a religious experience and to like experience, you know, nature and everything. So nobody's even loud. Nobody's, you know, so imagine that shit. I could imagine her just showing up like, you know, just like being out of control and just doing whatever. Just like littering.
It was when she was
just really offensive.
It was when she was filming one of the Hunger Games, like one of the movies at one of the scenes.
Yeah, no, it was something with Chris Pratt.
No, I feel like it was the movie where she's in a space pod or something like that gets released. It was one of those, but the point is she was there.
Yeah,
So,
she was there on site filming.
Like if you know, if you don't know, then whatever. But.
Well, because they have and I think this is true that most of the time when you're doing filming on different sites in Hawaii, that they have cultural experts that will come on and say like, you can't, don't touch this.
Yeah.
Blah blah
like,
blah.
Hi, please be a basic, like just some basic human decency is all we're asking.
Because like you could
like,
one could make the argument like, oh, maybe she didn't know. No, she did know.
No, that's what I'm saying.
She did
was
know.
explicitly told, and she made jokes about being explicitly told, and then
that's
which is that
like you said, you just lack empathy.
You lack empathy and like that flippant attitude towards what other people consider sacred, like to the sacred.
Just inconsiderate.
Yeah,
that's weird to me, right?
Yeah.
God forbid you say anything bad about football, though.
Ooh.
Like they will
show a titty.
Oh no!
Show a titty at a football
just talk
event.
about like what they did to Janet Jackson, right? And like we have Justin Timberlake up here on a pedestal, and he's not allowed
again.
No, and he's
got to perform. No,
she's not allowed back.
She's not allowed back. But this motherfucker rips her jacket off, and her titty comes out. He grabbed the jacket and pulled the titty out.
Yeah,
he knew what was going on.
It was pre-planned.
He knew what was going on. But then we get to see his. I mean, JT. I'm not even trying to hate on you, baby. Like you're cute. You're cute. I'm not trying to hate on you, baby. You're cute. I'm mad at the system. It's not you. I'm mad at the system, okay? He comes back, but we never get to see Janet again. Come on.
Yeah.
How you gonna do Janet Jackson like that? How you gonna do Janet Jackson like that?
Oh my god.
You should be thankful that she even
graced.
She gifted the world.
Gifted the world. What? Yeah. And I don't know if I can say that about JT. You're cute, but I can't say you gifted the world.
I agree with you. That's true.
Your music
she has more. Yeah.
We're not gonna. I know. Don't even start.
Don't start talking about that. Don't.
Oh.
I will get lost.
We're gonna be flustered. We're gonna be flustered if we talk about Jason Momoa.
We'll get back.
Okay.
We could have a whole individual stream.
We can make a stream.
Here's the thing. Let's go through really quick, and just say it. Alien, milktoast, French toast.
Ooh. It's like what context are you looking at it?
As a whole, are we talking about the
whole milk toast, French toast?
Nowadays or when it came out?
Whole French whole French toast. Whole franchise. Whole franchise.
No. It's milk toast trying to be French toast.
It's milk toast trying to be French toast?
Yes.
Thinly veiled milk toast, and you're absolutely right because so many of her traits she didn't get until she was extremely masculine coded.
Okay.
And you can see that even now. Like,
okay.
The lens
they did
has not
so
changed.
much.
Terminator. Go ahead, Randy.
I thought they just wanted her to be strong. I didn't know that they wanted her really to be masculine, but I do agree with you looking at it with her haircut and all the different changes.
There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just that was the traits that made her a character. She wasn't allowed to be like her own
quite
beforehand.
Wait, just real quick about that. No, so it was either hyper mask or hyper femme because what they did with her is like they'd have like these scenes like where she's this like big out there gonna get him traits versus like one of the scenes she falls into this pit with the alien when she has it inside of her and they're like enveloping her.
That was so weird.
That was
so weird.
They made it like super like sexual, like oddly sexual. So she's either hypersexualized or hyper mask. So there is like there's no space in between to build a character that is that like lives in that in between space.
Okay.
And then
Terminator.
Milktoast.
Because the strength lies in letting your character just be. But anyways, go ahead.
So Terminator? Milk toast?
That's my first idea.
I'm going to go ahead and say French toast on that. And the reason is because she beats those dudes up.
She does.
She beats them up in the hospital with there was no changes yet. Just the same person, ponytail beat you up and escaped from your whole system. And then she has all the pre-planning. She's like the brains of the full operation. Nobody had the foresight of what was coming down. And nobody believed her. Everybody thought she was crazy. She was the only one that was like ahead of her time and like an actual trendsetter. Like what do you call those? She was a maverick. She was like an actual maverick. And that's why, and nobody was doing that in movies, especially that was like 1989 or something like that, or 88 or something. Like they weren't coming out with movies like that. It was like Leave It to Beaver type movie. And like, you know what I'm talking about?
True.
Like when you go back and you watch those movies like Home Alone, look at the characters. They were like really wearing like the aprons and the whole deal. And
it's true.
It was really
and so
like that.
I'm gonna have to say French Toast too, and partially for the same reason. Linda Hamilton was like an icon. And one thing I always liked about her is like, even though they did do the chalice thing with her, like she was like birthing John Connor, she also had so much agency in that second movie and was so badass in that second movie, and then dictated and controlled what happened for him in the third movie so much that I was like, wow, like she's still influencing the plot and she's dead.
So I have a question though. I got a question.
Is that fridging?
Not quite asking about that. But so in terms of whether we're labeling it French toast or milk toast, are we talking, because the way I was approaching it and the reason I labeled it milk toast was talking about an intersectional viewpoint. Because from an intersectional viewpoint, it's not as great. No. In terms of developing a strong female character, they did start to morph into something that was better than what had been expected previously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's where you're getting your French toast. And
that's
so
where I was coming from, for sure.
Right. And so, but the lens I was coming from is like, in terms of like, say, intersectional feminism or intersectionality in general, there's not much there.
Okay, so I could say milk toast trying to be French toast.
So, but, well, I'm just talking, it depends on the lens.
Absolutely.
It depends on the lens.
It depends on the lens.
When that was released, like, hot off the press French toast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Compared to the other things of the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Because they were pretty, like, they were pretty bad.
There was no bar.
You know what I mean? The bar was real low.
It was so low.
It was really low.
Yeah, for me, especially as like a young woman, like growing up and seeing Linda Hamilton, and for that matter, Sigourney Weaver in Alien, like that, especially being kind of like a tomboy, like that was like, those are my icons in a lot of ways. And then it was like later when I saw Angela Bassett, like that I started to really, that I started to see a little bit more of myself. But we digress. Hunger Games.
We digress every like second sentence.
For
That's
people
all right.
like me who didn't grow up with like a mom with like an apron on, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It was like, I was happy to see somebody that was
relatable.
like, you know what? Like relatable. Like this is how my mom is. Like she's tough. Like she's not like a soft lady.
No.
Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like
she ain't wearing an apron.
She's not baking any muffins. All right, you know what I mean? Like you know, she's out building new information technology stuff. For Boeing and for other companies like that. Like it's just like, so for me,
so then you kind of probably had a vision of your mom where you're like, yeah man, she probably could strap into a machine gun and fucking take fools out.
She could. She was tough.
I don't know what she does at work for all that.
No. It wasn't work. It was like back in those days. There was a huge gang problem where I grew up in like Jenkins Park area, Seattle, and she would bully those gangsters. She referred to them as citizens. She was, you're all citizens, and they respected her. They didn't try anything ever. Wow. They respected her. They love her. They talk to her to this day. The ones that are around, they still talk to her. They're still very respectful, and it's one of those things where she's just like, I'm not going to be bullied by anybody. I was here before you. I know your mom. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to do this by my house? She's just not really that soft.
I love it.
She just wasn't that type of person. So
relatable when you see then female characters, lead protagonist characters like Sigourney Weaver and Linda Hamilton, because you're like, that
like
Yes, I could
expected,
totally
like
see
you were
that.
waiting for it, and that's what I was saying with even with these comics. Like I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a long time of when Iron Man, you're like the extra guy. You know, you're always like the extra guy, or they have to give you some like blatant name. You got to be like the Black something, or like your show's got to be Blackish or something like that. Like you can't
Let's not jump down that.
But no, but my point is they have these
minutes.
scripts. The scripts are there.
We can do whatever we want.
You can have anybody play any role. There's no limit. You know?
Okay.
It's up to us. It's
just like how they swap those guys out, they could do it the other way around.
They could swap them.
You could swap them in.
Which brings us to something which we could talk about.
But real quick.
That's a good way to put it.
Real quick. So
Swap 'em
it's great that we're getting those like hardcore strong female characters, but there are more ways to be strong, and
That's
I think
true.
that was one of the things that were for the time, and I think if we put it in the context of for the time, that is groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But from what we're looking at from lenses now is like finding other ways to be strong rather than just taking on these hard traits.
Yeah.
And finding that sort of
yeah. So then we
because
see
my mom hates guns.
So then we see characters more like Katniss.
Yeah, so
Rogue
interesting.
and Jin.
Right. So I prefer Jin to Katniss in terms of like the way they find their strength.
Yeah.
And just because like Jin is like kind of trying to find out who she is in all of this and why it matters.
I would agree with that. That whole arc felt very non-committal. Like she was like, "Why am I here? Like who am I?" But none of it like really stuck with me. It was just like,
Are you talking
I'm
about
here.
Katniss or
No,
Jin?
Jin.
Okay.
She's like, "I'm here now and I'm gonna rebel or whatever." I'm like, okay, that took you like a whole like 18 hours to figure that out. I'm not convinced. The people around you aren't super convinced. I don't know if you're just saying this just to fuck Diego Luna, because bitch, I would too. But like, past that, it looked to me like it was just words she was saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
that's acting.
Okay, well, okay, listen. It wasn't
fair.
It wasn't the character. It was just words she was saying.
Right.
Which, if you want to dive deep into characters, like, oh yeah, that could be a whole trait. Like she just fits in, or she wants to do that sort of thing. But they were trying to make a bigger rebellion narrative with her than I think they ended up doing.
Yeah.
And also, I was just tired of I was so disillusioned from the start. Because first of all, they fucking killed off Saw Gerrera in like the full first 10 minutes we got to know. So I'm like, oh god, okay, so this is the path we're going down. You're gonna market, like, even the trailer, it was full of all of the people of color who are the main stars in that. And then it was like, oh, Jin. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for this.
You know how many writers they ended up going through? They kept having, or it was directors or writers, something like that, where they had to keep going back and redoing the story.
Maybe it's because it's a bad script.
Well, it's not even necessarily that, is they kept changing it. They kept changing it, so like there are inconsistencies.
All I wanted to know is why didn't Diego Luna and her kiss? I kept wanting them to kiss, and I know it would have been bad, and everybody would have been like, and then they made them kiss. But I just kept wanting it to happen. Am I a bad person?
I feel like it was that sort of Mako Mori type deal.
I saw like, oh, that kind of worked. And the thing I'm making.
Well, because like Mako Mori is from Pacific Rim, and she had her own. She was one of the only female characters in the whole movie. Like there were a couple others, but she had her.
She was a person of color and she didn't die. I will.
Okay,
say
she's
that.
she's a person of color and didn't die. The bar. No, but she had her own whole plot development that was not centered around Riley. Yeah. That wasn't centered around him, and at the end everyone was like, oh, they had such chemistry, why didn't they kiss? I think that was better off like that way.
Totally.
And so
for Pacific Rim, I would completely agree with you.
No, and the point I'm getting to is I think they were trying to do that same sort of thing with Rogue One, like at least from how I was reading it, but
they didn't know how to
but
write
also
it.
Diego Luna.
I know. That's why I wanted them to kiss, because
Yeah.
I wanted to kiss them. But that's why. That's all. I just wanted to
live vicariously through.
I can't remember. I don't even know her name.
It's such an interesting
Felicity
point.
Jones.
Felicity
Jones. I just know this phenomenon just because of the aimless like Google search.
Wanting to kiss Diego Luna.
Well, I mean, yes,
Okay.
but the way people of color, especially like Black people in America, have been forced to like connect and sympathize and like familiarize themselves with exclusively like white actors and white characters.
Yeah.
So we have that innate ability almost to just do that.
To empathize. And
yes, that's the word.
That's what. Yeah.
So that's what's like throwing me off a bit. Cause again, I just know it's like, oh, she could have just been brown. Like it's so easy, and we wouldn't have been forced to sympathize again. Not even like force is kind of a weird word because it was a force, but now it's just.
Well, I think it's not us being forced so much as providing an opportunity to show stories like The Hunger Games, to show stories like Rogue One, where white people are having to actually empathize with characters of color. And connect themselves with those characters and imagine themselves as those characters. Like thinking about if The Hunger Games, if Katniss Everdeen was a Native American, was cast as a Native American, how different would that story have been? How different and how more meaningful and powerful could that moment have been? Like, why did Hollywood shy away from telling that story?
I mean, like, don't ask me this and expect an answer.
I don't know the question. It's a rhetorical question.
I was thinking,
that was
I
something
don't see
you brought
too
up
many
before.
people that are native getting many acting roles, period.
Yeah.
She have to constantly.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Like, it's just not really a represented group right now.
There's
Or
so
very
many groups.
underrepresented.
They're underrepresented.
There's so many groups that are underrepresented because there's
I'm not
this
going to
whole...
mention my favorite Native actor.
Listen.
Okay, no.
I'm not going to
but
divulge into
Go get a
it.
drink of water.
There's this
I
idea...
got this close and then I had to jump away.
There's this idea of not having enough seats at the table.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the table is populated by the people who are in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like all these cisgender white men. And there's room at the table for one group at a time.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of
But it's totally untrue.
it's not
though,
true, but there's this concept of it. So it's like, okay, we're gonna give women their moment. We're gonna give black people their moment. But like, can't we get more people first of all, more than a moment, and can we get more people?
Yeah.
There's room for more people at the table.
Yeah.
Blow their
room
fucking
for
minds with
everybody.
a single
More
black
people,
woman.
more voices.
Yeah.
More people and more voices at the table.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
people, more... Yeah, I'm wondering, too, if we're going to see this big shift because of the culling that's been happening with the Me Too movement in the entertainment industry. Like, there's been this, like...
Yeah.
Fuck you. And I'm so excited. I don't know if anybody else has felt so excited. It's like opening up a present
very entertaining.
every
Yeah,
day.
yeah, that
Find out
feeling.
who went down today? Because I don't know any of this, but I love to
man.
see a disgusting man get pulled down and like get called on his shit. Like, you're out raping women, you're out raping people, and now we're calling you out.
Called out.
Yes.
Anyone discussing
Right?
Kevin Spacey going down, I enjoyed that.
Right.
Like some
There's
of these,
so
I can't
many-
lie.
So many layers. So many layers to that issue right
I
there.
hate to like celebrate someone's downfall, but dude, like you guys are doing really. Once again, you guys are doing really bad stuff. You know, at a certain point, it's not really celebrating people's downfall. It's more so just rooting for justice. Like justice has been like diverted. You know, like for a long time, these guys have been above the law. They're doing whatever.
Impunity.
I mean, like
Impunity.
people. The thing that
impunity.
pissed a lot of people off, like, because I hear this stuff all the time, is that everyone knew about these guys, and nobody was doing anything about it, and that was really like, people knew about the casting couch and like all that stuff. It's been a known thing, and we've just needed somebody to out these guys.
And that's what I mean. It's been great to see that. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a shift in that mentality of like there's not enough room at the table, because now there's been, as far as producers, directors, influencers in like big money influencers in Hollywood, there's been this like, culling of them out of the way, which potentially could leave room for a lot of like new creators and new voices coming in, and a shift, especially now that we're seeing things like Black Panther, we're seeing things like, in the post Lemonade era, things like Hidden Figures that are selling, right? That are selling.
We talked about that before.
But I think that comes down to empowerment and a power shift. Because when you're talking about your Beyonce, you're talking about your Rihanna, you're talking about all these things, you're talking about people who, through their means, have gotten to a point where they are above or mostly above the repercussions that come with standing up. So when you had your Me Too movement, and it was a lot of these people who were scared to talk out. They were scared to do so because of the repercussions that they might face. But then you get those people who are so into what they're doing that they are beyond that. That is the people who are the forefront of this change. And so then you start to see the people who are now less scared of repercussions coming out of the woodwork and being able to become the people who are in charge of their own stories.
I would love to see Issa Rae. Like, I'm so excited about what Issa Rae has been doing with her comedy show, and I want to see more. I know that she has so much more that she could be developing. And I would like to see more, even from that cast too. All the actors that are kind of featured in there, I would love to see them being like in different roles and stuff. There's a lot of ways in which this could be expanded, you know?
I think you're already seeing the change happening already. I think it's people like us are the change, and as long as we're the ones that pay these companies, they're going to cater to what we want. And they had pretty much a monopoly on information. So if you wanted to see a movie, it was based on the commercials and all that other stuff. But now with the internet and social media and everything else, it's become decentralized. And with these funding platforms, people are crowdsource funding their own projects.
Exactly.
So once there's the new stuff that people actually want, that is the real thing that people want, they start gravitating towards that. And the old crappy stuff dies off. It's the survival of the fittest is a rule in like all things. And you're starting to see it. The companies that don't want to change are going to disappear. That Weinstein company is going to be gone. It's being broken up as we speak. They're splitting it up. So it's happening. It's not, you know, things don't happen as fast as we would like them to, clearly. But at least things are starting to head in the right direction, you know?
But on that point, like, hit me up with freaking A Wrinkle in Time and Black Panther being the top 2 at the box office.
Nice.
Yeah, boy!
There's so many titles or headlines that were like, oh, Wrinkle in Time's losing out to Black Panther in the box office. It's like, no. You want to reword that headline to say 2 films directed by people of color, featuring people of color at the top of the box office.
That's what we want to say.
Thank you.
That's what we want to say.
Please.
What did Issa Rae say? I'm just rooting for all the black folks.
Yep, I'm rooting for anyone black.
Me too.
I'm wearing that shirt, or some people wearing that shirt when Black Panther dropped.
Me too.
No.
And not just that. I mean, I'm rooting for a lot of people.
You gotta
I'm
get
rooting for a lot of
in there.
people.
Everybody who doesn't suck.
But like the bar is so cool.
Everybody who doesn't suck, I'm rooting for you.
I'm rooting for you.
You know? And if you're rooting for me, I'm rooting for you. You know?
There we go.
But a lot of these guys aren't rooting for any of us at this table.
It's true.
They're not.
We gotta root for ourselves.
They're not, man.
It's true.
And it's actually like really short-sighted, because they could have maintained control by giving us some stuff. Right?
But we don't want it to have control.
No. I'm not saying we do. We obviously don't. But I'm saying they could have kept their grip by just allowing some more stuff to come out and not having it be patent just crap all the time and killing all the people off in the first 5 minutes and, you know, only letting there be, you know, bad characters and like gangsters and like all that. They could have done that on their own. They didn't have to wait to just now come out with Hidden Figures with like, you know, that was like the 1960s? Like you guys, you had a lot of time. You had a lot of time.
You know why.
Yeah, because they don't want you to know about the like black connection with math and going back to ancient Egypt and geography and all that stuff, because they want you to stick with Pythagoras and you know, everything came from Greece and all that stuff, and you know, they don't want you to know about the library in Alexandria and all the stuff that the Greeks got that information from. And they know that. It's not like they don't know. If I know, you know they know. You know what I mean? So but they could have done it. You can tell they want control. You can see it with the information and the fake news and all this other crap. You can see how hard they're trying to cling to control. And the harder you try to cling to power, the faster you lose it, right? And it's like sand in your hand. The more you try to grip it, the more it slips through your fingers.
Well, let's hope that's what we're seeing right now. Let's hope. Let's hope that's what we're seeing right now.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think we could sign off.
Yeah.
Did we touch on everything?
We did.
Pretty darn
Pretty
close.
much.
Pretty darn
Yeah. We touched on everything.
Okay.
Everything in the world.
I didn't say one person's name, and I'm not gonna say it.
It's okay.
Girl,
we said it.
stop.
We said it. We said it. We're good.
Go get some water.
That being said, Jason Momoa, if you're out there, we love you. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us today. This has been Milktoast Rebels. Make sure to check out our social media. That's going to be posted up at the end of the video here real quick, and we'll see.
I'm Ina.
Randy.
Miriam.
Morgan.
We're the DFL.
Yeah.
And we're signing off.